now broadcasting live on Facebook, and we're recording this for everybody who could not attend so they can come and watch it later, or for everybody who can attend if you just want to watch it again. The video is on Facebook, which means you can watch it at any time after this meeting is over. It's automatically uploaded and automatically recorded to Facebook, so you can go there anytime. And I do encourage you to go there to continue the conversation. I know we usually have a lot of Q&A that happens after the presentation, and we can't always get to everybody. But if you go to our Facebook page, and I will post a link in the chat for you, you can actually leave comments right there, and we'll do our best to answer them. Jamie goes to our Facebook page all the time, so she can answer them as well. And it's just kind of a way to, keep the whole conversation going. For those of you who don't have Facebook, the video is also going to be on YouTube. The YouTube version will probably upload tomorrow afternoon. And that's also when I'll be sending out an email that'll have your PD certificates. Plus, I'll have all of the download links. So if you don't get to them today, because they're going to be in the chat during Jamie's presentation, but if you can't get to them, they will be in the email that I'm sending out to everybody. So you'll be able to get to them there. And I think that's everything from me. It's 7 o'clock. So I'm going to say welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you could all make it out this evening. I'm Charles from Teachers Discovery. With me, of course, Dr. Jamie Limkow, who is going to be discussing today. I just had it in front of me. I lost it. Using readers to perfect speaking and listening skills. So Jamie, I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Chuck. Nice to see everybody, and welcome to our 4th Wednesday Reader Workshop. So excited to be here with everyone and share some new tips and tricks with you. Like Chuck said, tonight's focus is on speaking and listening activities. So just want to introduce myself real quick. I'll do a brief review of some Flangu tips for any of our new users out there, and then we're just going to dive right in. So my name is Jamie Limkow. This is my 20th year teaching Spanish in the classroom. And I've just always loved Spanish since I started in 7th grade. I'm a language enthusiast. I have my master's in education and Spanish language and literature, and also a PhD in Spanish language and literature. So really the music is what got me hooked to loving language, but really also reading and traveling and just learning about culture has been so essential for me. And that's something that I try to impart on my students and their knowledge and hopefully their love of language as well. So just like all of you, I'm a high energy teacher, and it's always fun in the classroom and just moving around different activities. And now that we're all back to school and we're doing our typical routine, I guess, or as typical as it can be right now, we're doing things great in the classroom, and Flangu is really a wonderful supplement to the wonderful things that you're already doing. So I'd like to share some things with you today that if you're new to Flangu, hopefully it'll entice you to utilize it in the curriculum that you already have. And if you're already using Flangu, maybe you'll think about some tips and tricks and maybe integrate some new things in your lessons. And then I would love to hear back from you, like Chuck said, on Facebook, if you want to communicate with me and let me know how it's going, or maybe you have some ideas you'd like to share as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so here's my Flangu up for you all to see. And I'm just going to walk you through, I'm going to open up the reader called Rival. This is a great, let me just move these screen tools over so I can see what I'm doing here. There we go. So if you go up to the type, just as a quick, an additional trick, sometimes the books that you've been reading will pop up here at the top. But if you want to do a quick search, you can just type it into the search bar and here it pops up. So here's Rival that I want to show you. This is a great, right here I have open the level 2, but we have it offered in levels 1, 2, and 3. And this is pretty much a historical fiction about La Reconquista in España, so the reconquest in Spain. And it's a great story, great characters. The artwork is really wonderful as well. So I just wanted to use this as an example. If you've never used Flangu before, when you open up one of our books, you see the title page here. It tells you what level it's coming from, how many chapters. We have quiz questions that I'll show you in just a moment. And it gives you, again, a little synopsis of what it's about. This book taking place in Spain is pretty cool because when we get to the narrator part, you actually hear the Castilian accent. He's going to speak with a cedilla, which if you teach any linguistics in your class, we don't always hear that very often in our listening activities from our textbook. So this is a pretty cool advantage for this one reader. So you see here beautiful pictures. Sometimes there's artwork to accompany the text. We have words that are underlined here. So depending on the level 1, 2, or 3, your student can just quickly scroll over a word that we as the teachers know that they might not know. It might not be a cognate. It might be a reach for them. So the translation's right there for the words that are super essential for them to understand while they're trying to read the reader. So that's a really nice function right at their fingertips. And the more difficult of the reader, so if it's a level 3, it's going to be more difficult than a level 1, is going to have less words underlined because the student should be able to figure out more from context. So that's a really nice feature that we have. So after reading through the chapter, at the bottom here are multiple choice questions. So you can check your students' level of comprehension. You can ask them to click on that and then see what is their answer. They're going to get, here we go, they're going to get choices, submit it, and get their answers in real time. And you can look on the teacher page to see how many they got correct to know if they really should be continuing on in the text. So I'm going to go back to that chapter, and I just want to show you real quick. This is probably my favorite function. I know I've mentioned this every time. So if you've heard me in a different Wednesday workshop, I still love this. So when you play the button for the narration, the narrator will read to your class. I'm just going to play a fragment here.
1212. Pedro Vega García, un caballero templario.
Okay, so you can hear there the cedilla. You could hear that authentic Spanish accent. The part that I like the best is that you can make it faster and you can make it slower. So over here, you have the option to make the reader read faster, so a little bit more authentic, or you can slow him or her down so your student can practice at home, listen at home, read along with the author or with the narrator. It's really great. And it also gives you a break. If you're reading this with your class, you can press play and that narrator will read the whole chapter. You can pause it as you see fit, ask some comprehension questions to your students, and you don't have to read out loud to everyone. And not everybody likes, and not every student likes reading out loud in the target language. So sometimes you have those classes where kids are more shy, or maybe it's a beginner level where they really don't know how to pronounce too well. This is a great function for you to utilize when you're in the class teaching in a full classroom, or again, if you're doing a listening activity like we're going to integrate tonight. So those are just a couple key features. And if we go back to the main page on Flangu, I also just want to point out here, we group books by levels. So we have the pre-level 1 for your very beginners, level 1 for, coming out of beginning, almost intermediate, level 2 for your more intermediate, and level 3 and up. We also have them broken up by favorites because you can give stars for how much you like each reader. And then we also have them broken down into categories. So if you're into comprehensible input, you might pick one of those. If it's a biography, you want your students to research a real living or someone who was living, that would be in that category. Comedy and humor, holidays and special days. These are great. I'm going to show you the second one listed there, the encierro tonight. And then finally, bizarre and creepy, and graphic novels. So it's broken down into theme, and it really is helpful for deciding which reader you want your students to read. And also when they're going to try and pick a theme, it helps them, focus a little bit more on what they want to pick. So I'm going to jump into the first activity for tonight, which is going to be speaking activities. So Chuck, if you can go ahead and put that link into the chat, I'm going to open up that holiday short that I was just talking to you about, which is the Encierro en Pamplona. So again, I can just go to that magnifying glass, type in Encierro because I know which one I want to talk about, and I'm going to open up the level 1 to start. Okay, so if you want to open up as well, there is a doc here that you can follow along with me. I'm going to hit that in just a second. You can see it's that one, Ideas for Speaking Activities. Okay, so El Encierro en Pamplona is about the running of the bulls. And this is a great it's a holiday short, which is a little bit shorter than our typical readers. You can accomplish this in 1 or 2 class periods. If you're block schedule, I think you can certainly read through this with your students in 1 period, or you can assign this as a homework. You can break it up into days. It's up to you, but it's not a 10 chapter reader like some of the other longer ones. This is more of a short getting to learn right away. So we also have this in level 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to show you right now in a level 1. Okay, so you can see here, great pictures, action pictures. It gives the students a little bit of a background here, a map of what's going on, and then also some keywords to know. Okay, so we're going to go ahead into the actual reading. Okay, let's go into the chapter. Okay, and what I really like about this is the great pictures that they have. And I'm going to show you also some videos, and this is what we're going to use as a speaking activity. So if I was reading this with my students, I could go through, show them the pictures, show them the text. Here's some videos that we're going to play. What I want to show you to start, I'm going to be looking at this video with you in just a second. But so this is a level 1 book, and you can see the basic use of present tense. We have some underlined words. It's very small sentences, easily digestible by my beginning students, and it's something that they can understand easily. The videos and the pictures are going to be the same in all 3 levels. So I just want you to take a look at the text here for the level 1. And now I want to show you how it's a little bit more difficult if we were to jump up to a level 3. Okay, I'm just going to go to the top here again. It can go right back to my home page, and I can type in encierro, and I'm going to open up a level 3, because I just want you to see real quick how much more advanced is the 3rd level. Okay, so we're going to go to the chapter 1. Okay, again, same pictures, same videos that we're going to show, but the grammar is more advanced. And I'm going to show you that one blurb from before. Okay, so we have corredores instead of los que corran, acompañan. We have some more advanced verbs, trayectos. You see that there's not as much underline. So it is a little bit more difficult. It does have, right here is that same blurb. We are using expressions todavía, rostro. You see something here underlined, mi juego a no morir, irracionalidad. So we definitely have longer words, a little bit more use of cognates, and you can see they're not small choppy sentences. So this would be for a more advanced student. What I'm trying to show you is you could use the same reader in your classroom, but assign this idea to maybe someone who's a high flyer and you would give them the level 3, maybe someone that needs a little more remediation, you could give them a level 1 and 2. They're all reading the same thing, and they're all going to do the same type of speaking activity because the video is the same. But they're getting the input based on the level that in which they need it. So I want to show you the video. Now there's not going to be any words, and I'm just going to play a quick snippet, but we're going to use this as a springboard for a speaking activity in the classroom. Okay, so if you've never seen Running of the Bulls before, and you were some of my students earlier this year, their jaws were like, hit the floor. They had never seen that before. They were so enthused. They thought it was amazing. And it gave me this idea for a great speaking activity. So there's no narration in that video. And there's a couple videos on this short that you could choose, and on other shorts as well. So my suggestion here, and I'm going to pull up my activity sheet now for you to follow along with me. So here are some ideas you could do to get students to speak and get them to narrate a video like the one you just saw. So if this was a level 1 student, or it's a student in your class that needs a little bit more remediation, a little bit more review with the basics, I'm saying here, imagine that you're one of the spectators in the video. Describe where you are, describe who you are, where you are, what time is it, what the weather is like, what you see, and what you're listening to. Try and use as many colors, numbers, and adjectives as you can to describe the scene. So this would be a basic present tense objective for your student. Again, this could be a review, something that you're doing in the beginning of your class, like at the beginning of the semester. You might want to do something like this for a beginner level before a major test, or maybe before the midterm. If you're talking about some of these colors and weather, these are all beginner things that we always review in our classrooms, even with our intermediate levels that need to review from the prior semester or from the prior year. Using ser and estar to describe what time it is, what is the nationality of the people that you see, what are the characteristics, and then using the verb estar to tell how you feel and where you are. Those are things that we are constantly repeating, even with our upper level students, to make sure that they internalize those concepts. So that would be my suggestion for a level 1 speaker, or a basic, or even a low intermediate student that needs a little bit of review, to get them to watch that video and narrate exactly how they feel, which would be a fun way for them to kind of put themselves in the shoes of those runners through the streets. If you wanted to make this a little bit more challenging, here's an idea or a spin for a level 2. So this would be more for an intermediate. This is what I did with my Spanish 3 class. I teach freshmen that are 3rd level. So I said, imagine you're one of the spectators in the video, same premise. Tell what you saw when you just witnessed the running of the bulls. What were your emotions as the bulls were running through the streets? How did you feel? Describe the scene you witnessed. So in my 3rd level, we just finished the imperfect tense. It's the first time that they've seen it, and we talk about an action in progress. We also talk about an interruption to the action in progress of how to coordinate the imperfect and the preterite in one foul swoop, in one sentence, if you will. So this would be a great way to integrate that telling and narrating now in the past tense. So this would be preterite and imperfect combined as their storytelling. So it would have to be a student that already has learned those 2 past tense conjugations. You've already done practice, and now you want to give either an enrichment and extension activity, or you want them to now practice on speaking and narrate utilizing that storytelling technique. I also thought to include in here a review of the reflexive emotion verbs like ponerse. So tell, that they became excited, they became nervous. Again, it's an irregular in the preterite, so that's always something we're reviewing, but then also making that adjective agree with the person that's speaking. So there's so many different grammar points that you could work into this intermediate level once they're narrating what they saw in the past. Jill, I don't know if you're taking your students to see a bullfight, but maybe that's something you want to incorporate as well when you go to Spain. So a level, oops, I lost my page here, level 3 activity. So this would be for your more advanced. You could even do this as an AP if you're teaching AP and you wanted to do something fun with narration that wasn't an exact replica of the AP exam. But I said here, imagine you're a spokesperson witnessing the running of the bulls. Create a dialogue between you and your partner. So that's where this is a little bit more AP aligned, or a little bit more of an enrichment for your advanced classes, because it has that dialogue component. So you're going to want to pair people together. They're trying to use exclamations, questions and answers, suggestions for people running with the bulls. And my suggestion here was to incorporate an impersonal expression and the subjunctive. I'm always pushing my advanced students. Can you get in certain expressions so that you can easily outline your work? Things like como punto de partida, además, en cambio, a fin de cuentas, basic things that help them structure what they want to say. Exclamations are a great one. I mean, everyone is always yelling in my class, "Ay caramba." So that would be something definitely on par for the running of the bulls. And then the dialogue features, the question and answer, we're always trying to replicate what would an authentic dialogue be with a native speaker and someone who's learning. So that would be a great replica and definitely a connection to the informal conversation of the AP requirement. So again, it mimics that setup of the informal conversation, and it allows for students to really become invested in something that's interesting and fun to talk about. And who knows, maybe one of them has even been to the running of the bulls, and they can share with the class. Okay, so that's my first activity for a speaking. And the second one that I wanted to share with you has to do with the graphic novels. So I'm going to go back to my Flangu page, and I'm going to pull up Black Canary here. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to Flangu, click in here. So we do have a bunch of graphic novels, and I really like them. They're from DC Comics, lots of different themes. I really like Black Canary. That's one that my students have really enjoyed as well. And they're on levels 1, 2, and 3. So just like I mentioned about El Encierro, if you have a class where some students are really excelling and need a little bit more of a push, you can assign them a level 2 or 3. And then if you have a student that needs remediation, you can assign them a 1 or 2 to make it understandable and more comprehensible on their level. But everybody's reading the same story, which is so nice. You don't have to differentiate any more than you already are. I'm sure you're differentiating throughout every class period. It's nice when they can read the same thing and you don't have to find different readers for different kids. It's all the same reader, which makes them available to chat with each other as well about the story because they're all reading the same thing. So my suggestion here, I'm going to open up the graphic novel for you so you can just see how beautiful the artwork is and what it looks like. Start from the beginning here. Okay, so these are only a couple chapters long. I think this one is 4. I think this one's about, 4 chapters long. So again, you're not spending weeks on this. You could certainly accomplish this in about 1 week. So here's, oh, I lost my chapter page there. Chapter 1, you can see the beautiful graphics here, and it's written like a comic strip. And I know graphic novels are all the rage. Kids are loving to read it because it's easier and it's quick and they follow along well. So this might be one that you really like with your students. Some of the stuff is you're going to see in English because that's DC Comics. You have to keep certain things in there, but all of the dialogue is in Spanish. And we try to use as many authentic expressions as possible. Here we go. So Chaos and Chicas when the father comes in. So this is a little bit different. You can see all the dialogue here that's going on. And we do have the highlighted words again, they're at the bottom instead of putting them throughout the dialogue blurbs because we didn't want to mess up the speech here. We want it to have a certain look to it, like the kids are actually reading a graphic or a comic. So anything that would be a necessary word for the student to roll over, a highlighted word, that's going to be at the bottom. But if you notice, we don't have a narrator. So my suggestion for a speaking activity, if your kids like the graphic novels, would be to give them a turn to be the narrator. So back to my document here, I said it's time for you to be the narrator. Imagine that you and a partner are the narrators of the graphic novel. Pick 2 to 3 pages. Again, you don't need to have them narrate the entire graphic novel. That's a lot. That's a big undertaking. But maybe have them pick 2 or 3 pages. Maybe have them pick a chapter and divide up the roles of the characters between themselves. Here's the key. Have them narrate at 2 different speeds. The first speed should be slow and practice for enunciating the different words. I found that even with my AP students, they need practice of just basic rote speaking a text to just practice their pronunciation and how authentic they can sound. That's why it's nice also when they read along with the reader that they're trying to imitate exactly what they hear. So that's why I really like those readers that already have a narrator. But for ones like this that do not, this is a great chance for your student to become that narrator. So if they read nice and slow, they're enunciating, they're working on intonation and pacing and fluency and all of those buzzwords that if you're an AP teacher, you're checking off on your AP rubric. Or if you're a beginner, advanced, intermediate, or advanced teacher, you know you're filtering those type of keywords up through the ranks so that students can make sure that they're on par with authentic pronunciation. The second speed, after they're comfortable, after they're not botching any of the longer words, or they're putting intonation for the exclamations or for the questions in a sense, the second speed should be at a more comfortable, natural pace. So it forces students to record and re-record and listen. So they're speaking and they're listening both at the same time. They're working together. So they're speaking, they're listening to their partner. And it's just a practice for pronunciation. If you wanted to add some extension activities to that to kind of beef it up a little bit more, I have a couple suggestions for you. So you could, depending on what grammar unit you're working on, let's say you're doing imperfect preterite, or you're doing the present progressive, or you're doing commands, ask students to tally up in the chapter that they're reading or in the pages that they're assigned, how many times do they see that specific verb tense? Or is there a specific vocab word they're looking for, or just a specific verb? I mean, you could be focusing on ser and estar. How many times do they see the use of ser and the use of estar in any different tense? That's something that would focus them on their reading. So it's not just that they're sitting there reading. They're actually hunting and searching for those different vocab words. And it's going to encourage them to read and reread, and therefore their comprehension skills are going to increase for sure. You also could ask them to read the book with a Spanish accent using the Se Día. That's something that my students like to practice with. We do a linguistics little activity in the beginning of the year where we talk about Sina Lefa, we talk about Se Día, we talk about all different ways that Spanish speakers pronounce their words. And that would be something fun for students to really focus on. Where do they find a soft C or Z in order to make that Se Día come alive? Again, it's forcing your student to focus on the text, focus on their pronunciation, and really perfect what they're saying. A third idea would be to have students create another character to add to the scene, and then add that character's dialogue to their chapter. So that would be a little bit more extensive for them to create someone. That would be if you had a little bit more time, or maybe you had a homework assignment you wanted to give to them, and they would have to invent dialogue for that character to say. So again, you're encouraging a deeper connection with the novel. You're encouraging them to make it their own and become the narrator. Like if they've listened to a Flangu reader before, now they can actually be one of the narrators, and you're encouraging them to really have a close look at a text in a world language. And I think that would be really beneficial for any level 1, 2, or 3 or beyond. Okay, so that concludes the speaking activities that I have for you tonight. And we're going to move on to the listening activities. So Chuck, if you can load that one into the chat, please. And I'm just going to open up quickly a pre-level that's called Matemáticas y MESI. Okay, just to give you a quick idea of like a warm-up if you were wanting to do a listening activity warm-up. So obviously, I'm sure you are all familiar with the soccer player Messi. My students really love this one, especially my freshmen are really into football. So they like reading this. I don't know how much they're into matemáticas, but they definitely like reading about the sports. So this is a great reader. This is 6 chapters long with some multiple choice questions, but I wanted to show you as a warm-up, a way to integrate the readers at a really basic level. This is someone, maybe you just want to try it out and see like, how am I going to make this work in my classroom? I'm already overloaded. I have so much I need to accomplish. I really like the idea of readers, but I really don't know what to do. And I don't have time to sit down. The year's coming to an end. So I feel you. We're trying to get it all in. And if you're someone that really wants to just dip their toe in the water and see how could I use a reader, this is a really easy way for you to integrate it and kind of get some feedback from your students and just try it with no harm, you know, just an easy way to try it. So you could do a pre-level. And this would be a pretty easy reader for any class. I'm going to open up here. Here we go. We're going to go to just a regular chapter here. This is a pre-level, so it's pretty much just basic tense. Lots of underlined verbs, obviously piensa, because it's a boot verb, and a basic Spanish 1 or 2 student might not have had a boot verb at this point. You see noche underlined, football. So very basic, very easy to understand. My suggestion would be if you're someone that just wants to try and see how to integrate a reader, I would talk about obviously who is Messi, what is football, you know, that's the sport that we're talking about here. And then I might just keep this picture on my smartboard, or I'd ask the students to put that picture if they're pulling it up on their devices, and I would play the chapter for them. This would be a warm-up for when they come in. If they have headset and they could put their headsets on, or if you're just playing it in front of the whole classroom, that's your choice. Play the chapter. It's not that long. It should be very easy. It's only 2 minutes. That's not too much time. You can see it down here at the bottom. It's 2 minutes and 15 seconds. That's a great warm-up. And then the students scroll to the bottom and they try the multiple choice questions. That's a really easy way to just get in some listening activities. They then see how much they comprehended, and you could do a chapter a day. You could assign it for homework and then see on the teacher screen on the Flangu site how many they got correct. It's a great way for them, very easy to integrate, and nothing that you have to do on your spare time. You don't have to create any documents. You don't have to run anything off. You can try and integrate Flangu as a warm-up. You could do it as an exit ticket, and the kids are listening and they're enjoying, and hopefully it inspires them to to go ahead and read more. So that would be a really basic audio activity that I would suggest for someone who just wants to try it out. Okay, I'm going to open up now another pre-level one. This is another sports one called Rodrigo. Okay, La Decisión de Rodrigo. So this is a kid who's trying to learn how to which sport he wants to play, and he's not quite sure. He likes soccer, but he might want to run track, cross country. He's not really quite sure. So my suggestion here, and this is a pretty easy reader. Again, this is a pre-level one. So this would be something that you could use with your beginners. You could use this with an intermediate class, because I'm a firm believer that even if it's a little bit easier for the students to read, they grow a sense of confidence when they're understanding what they're reading. So even if this seems to be a little bit easier for your students, you can always beef it up with some enrichment activities and extension activities. So I really like this reader because it's all about sports, and most kids tend to like that. So here you can see, again, it's pretty easy vocab. It talks all about playing different sports. It has boot verbs. It is a lot of present tense, but you could see here, todos se divierten. And there also is a way for you on Flying.GOO to make less underlined words. So if you did want to use this with an intermediate class, you could turn off a lot of those features, so your students really have to figure out from context what they're reading. So again, at the bottom, you always have those multiple choice questions available to you. But if we were doing a listening activity, this would be my idea for you. So I'm going to go back to my doc here. So if this was a level 1 or 2, I again would have the narrator play the voiceover instead of you reading it aloud, or I would have the students read it and then listen as well. So I would have them listen either while they're reading, it's your choice if you want them to read as well, or just plain old listening. Listen for 10 infinitives that they hear. 10 infinitives, obviously unconjugated verbs, and they would fill it here in the chart. Listen for 10. Once you're completed with the chapter, have them fill out next, what's the definition? What does that infinitive mean? And then depending on what tense you're working on, if this was a level 1 or 2, can you conjugate it, let's say in the present tense? So here I gave you an example. They hear a star, what is the definition? And then they conjugate it in the right-hand side. So again, this is something pretty easy. You could do this as a warm-up. You could do it as an exit ticket or as a homework assignment. And they're listening specifically for an infinitive. So they're staying focused, because once you just press play, they're daydreaming, they're thinking about prom at this point. We really want to hone in those students. So if you give them something specific to listen for, I found that it makes it a little bit easier and they do stay focused. So that would be my example for a beginner level. And then you could have them do afterwards, make 5 complete sentences, again, an extension activity, so that they are utilizing the verbs that you've discussed. And now they're taking it one step further, writing complete sentences. If this was a more advanced class, like a level 2, I could play the same reader. Again, it might be a little bit easy in context, but they're listening for certain words, they're writing the infinitives. And now my third column here is to conjugate in whatever tense I'm working on. It could be the preterite tense, it could be the imperfect, it could be the subjunctive if it's an advanced class. It's totally up to you, but it focuses your listeners to hear from an authentic narrator. What are the verbs I'm listening for? How do I manipulate them into the tense we're working on in my classroom? And then again, do you have any sentences to describe? If this was advanced, if this was for the subjunctive, maybe you want them to make 5 sentences using an impersonal expression. Es necesario que Rodrigo corra con el equipo. Something as basic as that, but again, it's another iteration of using the subjunctive in context. So those are some ideas that I have for you with listening activities that I think you could really incorporate in the class, like I said, as a warm-up, as an exit ticket, or even assign to the students at night for homework. And then if you wanted to, you could check the teacher page to see how much they've completed, how much they've listened to. You always can keep tallies to make sure your students have actually done the assignment. Okay, so I'm going to conclude tonight with some speaking and listening activities combined. So Chuck, if you can put that one into the chat, it looks like this: ideas for listening and speaking. Okay, and this was one that I came up with because I like the idea of some partner activities. I actually did something similar today in my class, the opposite of what I'm going to describe to you. So I'll tell you that afterwards. And it worked really well and the kids really liked it. So I found that a lot of my students really like to draw. They might not be great artists, but they like to draw. And this gives them an opportunity to listen and draw what they hear, and then also to practice speaking. So this would be a great activity if you've assigned the students a reader, or even if you've asked them to pick a reader that they like, and then you partner them. I would partner them based on ability level. So I would partner my high flyers together and maybe assign them a level 2 or level 3. And I would partner my students that need a little bit more support or scaffolding. I would partner them together as well. So they're really working with someone at their level. And they should decide on the story together. They would both read the same story. So you would assign who is student A and who is student B, and then give them some opportunities to discuss a favorite character, to discuss a scene. And that way they could practice narration so that you're speaking. And then as they're narrating it, their partner is drawing it. So you can see here, there's space for the narration, and then there's space here for the dibujo. And you'd be surprised how much kids like to draw. So if it's a favorite character, they have to put a lot of thought into what that character looks like. What is the clothing that they're wearing? Maybe what is their expression? You can tailor the activity to be as detailed or as general as you like. And then the first student practices speaking out loud and narrating, while the other person is practicing listening and writing and drawing what it is that they've been told. Now, I've done this on like Microsoft Paint, where the students have their Chromebooks open and they're doing it online. I've had them where they've imported different, clip art. I've also had them sit down with colored pencils and crayons, and just, it's like a relaxing activity that they all really like. And then they love showing their picture to their friend, to the class. And it also allows us to open up dialogue for follow-up questions. So when you show your picture to the next group of partners next to you, you might encourage some dialogue. Can you ask a follow-up question? What's the name of that person? Where does the story take place? It allows you to go over some question and answers at the end. And then obviously student A and student B reverse roles. So the artist now becomes the narrator, and the narrator now becomes the artist. So I've had great success with this activity in different levels, even in a beginner level. We use situation cards in my curriculum, which has just some prompts on it for narrating a scene at the market, a scene in the school, a scene in the library. This makes it a lot more fun because the students get to pick the scene, they get to narrate the scene, and then they get to see it, what would it look like in your mind if you were an artist and could put it on paper. What I did today was actually the opposite. I gave them a graphic. So you could do this with the graphic novels as well. I gave them the graphic and had them narrate the story. So you could go to one of those graphic novels and ask them to narrate the story to a partner, and the partner might have to divide their paper up and draw that, or they could narrate to the partner the scene that they want to talk about. They really enjoyed that today. So I would put a time limit on the board. I would give 3 to 4 minutes to describe the story or describe the character, whatever they choose, and then about 1 to 2 minutes to narrate, depending on the level. So today I did this with my advanced class. I gave them 4 minutes. I also gave them a list of things they had to include in their narration. They needed a conditional verb, a future verb, a couple expressions. So it wasn't just, hey, go ahead and write about your character. No, you have to be strategic and think about what it is that you want to say about that person based on what we're doing in the classroom. So if you're working on the present progressive, maybe they need to pick a scene and say, what is going on in the scene at the moment? ¿Qué está pasando? And then that person, the listener has to draw what it is that they hear. So that again would incorporate the speaking and the listening, and then you could incorporate it all in the classroom and open it up for feedback and dialogue. And then you have the whole class speaking and listening, and that's a total win. So I really hope some of those tips and tricks helped you tonight. I love your feedback. I love your comments. So I'm going to stop sharing at the moment and then just go back to the main screen and see if we have any comments or questions.
If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat now, because there was like a whole bunch of stuff going on in the chat. But if you post anything right now, then we'll be able to get to it. Or you can always just unmute yourself if you want, and you can just ask questions out loud. We'd be happy to hear from you. Oh, there's a couple in the chat. I don't know if you can see the chat.
Like
Jamie,
high
like the
level
last
activities. I just wanted to let you know that for like my higher level Spanish students, I really like what you guys have. But for my lower level classes, because I start with really basic level students, some of the readings are pretty challenging. So I guess you could chunk it into smaller lessons. So my question would be, do you have any suggestions when you write the materials for a time pacing for the materials, or any type of chunking where maybe you do it in increments, you know, because if you have special needs students who need differentiation or time limitations, some classes are not every day, or maybe they're an hour and a half classes. Are there any type of suggestions with the materials for pacing, or, you know, how much time you need to do that lesson?
So I think if you're using a reader for a basic class, I would start with the pre-level 1. And there's a bunch of them in there that, depending on what is your curriculum, if you're talking about sports or you're talking about weather or the basics, you're going to find that vocabulary in the readers. So I would peruse through which is the one that most aligns itself to what you're teaching and use that as a starting point. And you can then go through and say to the students, okay, we're going to read the first chapter all together. Sometimes that's a lot more helpful if you put it on the board, if you have an audio system in your class, or if they each open it up on their device and you read through it all together and you stop it at certain points and you say, okay, can anybody pick out a sport that's listed here? Or can you find the boot verb jugar? Like, take it slow in the beginning. So if they've never
if the kids come in and they start a lesson, if they don't finish, it'll save where they were.
Yes. You can really always open it back up to the chapter. Right. You can always go back to the chapter. You can assign them to read that chapter again individually for homework. So I would say, you know, if it's a 6-chapter basic reader, you can do 1 chapter a day. You can really,
that's what I didn't know you could save. That's really important to know.
Yes, you can save it and they can go back and do and redo.
Right. Because then you can pace it and say, okay, today we'll do 5 minutes, today we'll do 10 minutes, and you should complete this particular section, but you don't have to necessarily teach the whole unit at one time. That's really important.
Correct. And there's also some of the readers have, or most of them actually have, PDFs that you could open up with some comprehension questions at the end. So that's something that you could assign as homework. You could have that be a warm up the next day. If you finished like chapter 1, you could have those comprehension questions ready for them the next morning as your warm up. So there's really a lot of integration for you to teach and repeat if you need to.
Great. Thank you. That's what, you know, if we're not saving it, if we're not hyperlinking to a Canvas or an LMS, it's really important that your potential clients understand that they can save and that they don't have to teach the lesson and finish the lesson, especially if we're especially if we're on a synchronous platform where we're teaching with a video, but we're not going to finish the whole lesson in that session. So the kids can follow and go back into, you know, I guess, so they have a password. They create an account. Is that how that works?
Yes.
You have your account. Yes. Now, what happens in some companies, like I work in proximity learning, and we don't generally use school passwords. Generally, they use our LMSs. Is there any way that your reading can be used embedded through the LMS, or do they have to always access directly through your platform?
Right now they have to access directly through Flangu. We don't have it set up to work with an LMS yet. I know that's something that we're working on, and I know that's something we want to be able to bring to people soon. I just
Yeah.
don't know how soon that's going to happen, because
That is
a lot
going
of
to
that,
be a big deal. That is going to make you guys sell really well once you can do that. I can tell you. Yeah.
there's a lot of privacy stuff that's involved with the LMS, and we have to get a
Uh-huh.
third party involved. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to figure out before we can make it work. But we
Yeah.
definitely want
Just,
to.
but with other, like with other products, I've
Mhm.
never seen a reading product as good as your product. I mean, I use Epic, and I've also I've seen some really great phone apps for reading, but you guys
Mhm.
have really comprehensive, a great reading platform.
Thank you.
The problem is when if I bring my students to you, um, it would require probably some other emails other than their LMS emails. So that's a little bit of a drawback, but not always a drawback. It just depends on each client that the company has. But the only other thing, I would just like to see some pacing guides, because I think that's always our issue. What we're challenged with all these online teachers right now is the pacing, right? Well, I'm going to have to leave you guys, but
Okay.
thank you very much. I really
you.
appreciate that you answered my questions. And I have not quite, I'm going to try your stuff with my right now I'm just teaching Spanish 1. In the past I've taught, I'm certified K through adult, but right now I just have really low level Spanish 1 learners, some of them with needing a lot of differentiation. And I find myself making a lot of stuff, even though my company has great stuff because of that. So yeah, I really see great potential though. If I were teaching AP, I could really dig you guys. I mean, awesome, really good. And I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you could come.
Right.
All right, Jamie, I got a couple of questions that popped up in the chat.
Sure.
So let me get to some of those. If I teach 2 different languages, but I use the same reader, will the work and answers of the students be separated? Can I create different classes? Well, yes, you can absolutely create different classes. I don't know, Jamie, did you want to answer that one, or?
I think she can create different classes. Is the question that she's teaching it in French and Spanish, or is she teaching in different levels?
This one says 2 different languages.
2 different languages.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine it's the same story. I would imagine it's the same story written in another language. So yes, it could be the same activities. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, our activities, what I'm suggesting to you for speaking and listening, if you're a French teacher or a German teacher, these all would work for any language student. It doesn't have to be a Spanish student.
In Flangu, when you're setting up your classes, yes, you can set up different classes, as many as you want, actually. So yeah, your answers and responses from different students, they're all separated into the different classes. So they won't like group them all together.
Right.
It's really easy to find the right students in the right class. What was the activity where 2 people record over each other?
Oh, that was something that I mentioned last Wednesday workshop. That was about dialoguing. That if you go back to the video from last section, I explained that pretty thoroughly about how to create an informal dialogue, very similar to what they're going to have to do on the AP exam. And you could actually have 2 students working on it at the same time. I just completed that with my students and it came out great. So if you want to go back to that video, because it is pretty extensive and I don't think we have another 25 minutes for me to go through it again. It's all outlined there. And if you have questions, please feel free to email me. There's docs there on the Facebook page for you to download if you want that correspond with that activity.
Let's see. Is it one pricing for all levels and all readings? Yes, it is. It is just one price and it is just one account. And your one account gives you every book, every level, every language, all of it, plus logins for all of your students all together. And the price I think right now is $129 for 12 months. So it'll give you 1 year of access for you and all your students. And that includes all the new books too, because we've got new books coming in just about every month. There's at least 1 or 2 new books in every language that's getting published. And I know like in the summer, like during that summer break. That's usually when we'll try to upload a bunch of books at once. So you'll see a lot more books get added over the break. Why are the graphic novels not narrated? Because we can't narrate a graphic novel. We don't know where to put the breaks in. So it would be really hard to keep up because of the way the panels are cut. You wouldn't know where to follow that. Graphic novels were designed to be very visual experiences. So they're the only things that are in Flangu that aren't narrated. Everything else in Flangu is narrated. What do we have? Oh, somebody asked a question, but it's all in Spanish. I can't read it. Jamie, can you read it? Or
let me see where it is.
It's at if you're looking at the time, it's 7:42.
Okay. 7:42. What interaction activities would you recommend? Interaction like partner activities. I think we mentioned a couple today. Not sure if there was anything more specific. I've over the last couple Wednesday workshops, I have mentioned a lot of different partner activities that allow for dialoguing. The one that someone had just asked about with the informal conversation, that would be a great one for interaction. I'm not sure if there was something else that was more specific. Something just popped in. Describing the character.
Oh,
Okay.
There was a question about the certificates, by the way. Everybody's going to be sent an email probably tomorrow afternoon, like later in the afternoon. You should get your email. It's going to have your certificate. If you do not receive it, or if you have not received it for the other workshops that you've participated in, just please email me and let me know, and I will get that to you. Which ones would you recommend for AP?
So for AP, I definitely would look at the level 3 if you're looking for a more academic read, because the level 3 is going to have future, conditional, subjunctive. But really, if it depends if you're looking at something that's cultural. AP is dictated by 6 cultural themes. So really any of our readers are related to all of those different themes. We have documents that talk about, which theme would it fall under, which category. So I definitely, if you're going from a grammar level, I would say any of the level 3s would be appropriate. But if you're studying, for example, right now we're starting Identidad Personal y Pública in my class, personal identities. Maybe I would want to pick a biography on one of the artists like Frida Kahlo or Diego Rivera. We have that coming soon. You might want to pick a sports person for Vida Contemporánea. So depending what theme you're in, that might dictate which reader you have. And if it's a reader in level 1, 2, and 3, and it's an AP class, I would sooner pick a level 2 or 3, just for the challenge that the content presents.
How many levels do you have for Spanish language? We have pre-level 1, level 2, and level 3 and up, which I think covers levels 3 and 4. I do not have any of the advanced, like the AP books. I don't think we carry any of those, but we do go up to level 4.
Mm-hmm. But you could use it in an AP classroom for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know that there are some books that are specifically designed for AP, and we don't have those. But yes, any of our books would absolutely be appropriate for your AP classroom.
I just want to say that I'm glad you came up with the pre-level ones, because they can be used in a lot of different ways, but they also really help to build confidence of new students, novices. And, when they're just learning, they come into class and they know that they're awkward. They know they don't know anything, but being able to read and understand a pre-level and being able to say they read a story in Spanish really helps to build their confidence.
I completely agree.
Let's see. One of my students changed her password and has now forgotten that password. What can I do? If you click on Manage Students in your account and go to that student, just click the button that says Manage. That's on the far right, and you'll see password and just like a little blank spot. You can type in anything you want there and save it, and that'll become her new password. And then she can log in herself and then change it herself. So just give her the password of 12345. And then when she logs in, then she can just change it on her own. I think that's everything for right now. Yeah, I've reached the bottom of the list. Yay.
Well, if anybody has other questions, feel free to put it in the chat in the Facebook page. I do check that. I'm happy to hear how you've integrated some of these activities. I would love feedback and see if it's going well for you or if you have any other questions.
Absolutely. And remember, my email is going to be coming out tomorrow later afternoon. So make sure you're watching for my email. And I guess that's everything.
I just want to know, are the handouts that you talked about today in a webinar, are they going to be in the attached to the videos, or if
yes. Okay. Yep, they'll be in that email that I send out. So you'll have all those links too.
Okay. Great. And then hopefully you can join us again for next month. We're going to go over some writing skills in all different levels, and that's going to be Wednesday, May 4th.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah. Oh, Evie, how many students is the subscription for? All of them. I think that it automatically sets to 180 students. But if you have more than 180 students, just reach out, let us know, and we'll work with you. We'll set that up for you. All right. Yeah, everybody have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thanks so much for coming out. And Jamie, thank you so much for hosting this event.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for everyone for coming. Looking forward to seeing you all next month.
Flangoo.com